We begin the current Daf, Mesech Yevamos Daf Tzadi Test. We begin on the top line of the Amen, but the Gemara continues our latest discussion from the previous Daf regarding, as we mentioned, the Mishnah, Chamash Nashim Shenes Arba Valdei Seher. It's a situation of doubt. We don't know who these children are. They were born in the cave, 5 different women, and they get mixed up. So our Gemara continues with interesting cases that are also doubts regarding who the children are and interesting ramifications of these doubts. Should correspond because of the Cheskel for anything that Chaim B'Shem is joining today's daf. Some of things we're discussing today's daf are, as our Gemara will start off with, Yesh Chelis Le'imim Mesafik. You could have a situation where, although a mother is one of the 15 women that you don't do Chalitza Yibdu, out of doubt, a person will be giving Chalitza to his mother. It might be Yesh Chelis La'achlis Mesafik. He's been giving Chalitza to his sister Mesafik, and Yesh Chelis L'bit Mesafik, because of the situation of death, he's been giving Chalitza to his daughter. Isha Isha Pam Shemalin Chamash Umas. You could have a situation where a couple could sometimes have 5 children from, so to speak, different nations, nationalities, because of their status as the time when they're giving birth. Another interesting situation, a person will be selling his father so that his mother could collect her ksuba. To pay up her ksuba, the son will be selling his father. Also another interesting idea. The next Mishnah continues the theme of the previous Mishnah regarding mixing up, where a child gets mixed up with the child of her daughter-in-law. So the shviga and the shnia, their children get mixed up, and the ramifications again regarding the laws of yibn chalitza. And similarly, if let's say a kahena is her maidservant, they're both giving birth at the same time, and their children get mixed up, what the halach is going to be, and related is whether an Ebed Kain is given truma when he goes to the guy. So begin the current Daf. Daf Tzadi Test in the top line of the Amen. Turn on Linda Bryson. Again, continue on this theme regarding when we have doubts regarding who the child is. So Yesh Chalitz Livim Mesafik. You could have a situation where a person is going to be giving Chalitza. Obviously, that means it's married to his brother, or concerned that maybe it's married to his brother. That he's going to be giving who died on the children. He's giving Chalitza to his mother out of doubt, even though she's one of the 15 women that we open up this Mesechta with that are Hoitris Torah saying. Even so, you might be giving chalitza. Turns out to lachayitze misafik, might give chalitza to his sister out of doubt, and labita misafik and to his daughter out of doubt, as the Beraitza illustrates Ketzah. Going to case number 1. What's the case of chelis le'imim misafik? So if you have imay the isha chelis, his mother and another woman, lohan shnei zecharim. They both have 2 boys, meaning each has 1 boy. Okay. Now these same 2 women, these 2 friends, they give birth to 2 boys, meaning each a boy, in the cave, meaning somewhere where it's not clear. Now Rashi describes to us the case as we have here illustrated. For example, let's say you have Rachel, who is the wife of Yaakov, who has a child, Yosef, from him. Then you have Chana, who is the wife of Reuben, who has Chetzron from him. Okay, so we know these children. We know this couple and this child. We know this couple and this child. Then, in the cave, there was a crisis going on. They were in this dark cave, and they both gave birth to boys. We don't know who's who. These Levi and Yehuda. And then Yaakov and Reuben pass away. Then comes along Yosef, the son of Rachel. He goes, and Ubo ben Shalzu, this Yosef goes, and Manasseh Imer Shalzu. He marries this Chana, who's the mother of Chetzron, which obviously he's allowed to. Uba b'nai Shalzu. And then this Chetzron, he goes, and Nasa Imer Shalzu. He marries this Rachel. Okay, that's the case. Now, Umesu, now Yosef and Chetzron both die, Baloi Banim without children, and now they fall in front of this Terevis, this Levi and Yehuda. Rachel is falling in front of the son of Chana, who's the brother of Chetzron. Chana is falling in front of the son of Rachel, who's the brother of Yosef. But you don't know who's the son and who's the Yavam. So therefore, you need Chalitza from both of them. So it comes out, Zecher it's L'shtein, V'zecher it's L'shtein. They each have to Chalitza and both get together. You don't know who's brother. And then comes out, each and every one of them is doing chalitza to his mother out of doubt because you don't know who is the brother of who. That was case number 1. Case number 2. You could have lachais b'safek ketzad. What's the case of that he's been doing chalitza to his sister out of doubt? So here actually we have two different girsais in Rashi. The Gemara, the Brisa says like this: Ima v'isha acheres. It's his mother and another woman. That they gave birth. That's the son, the Rivka here with the question mark. Gave birth to two girls in the cave. Ubo achehen shaloi ma'isa ha'im. And came along their brothers, who was not from the same mother, came along v'nasim and married them. Umeisa b'loi bana, and they died without any children. Let's first explain the two different gesayis in Rashi. Umeisu b'loi bana, and they died without any children. So chaylitz l'shtehen. So he does chalitza to both of them. It comes that he does chalitza to his sister out of doubt. So Rashi first brings a girsa that what's the case of lachis misafik? Says his mother and another woman gave birth to two girls in the cave, and the girsa Rashi brings is va'amdu shnei achem min ha'av. Then two brothers from the father, meaning two paternal brothers, came along and married them. So halacha is that you do chalitza to both of them. Comes out you go doing chalitza to your sister misafik. And it says that's what is brought in the Tosefta. That, as Rashi now describes the case, his mother, who gave birth from another man, who then went and married after his father died and gave birth together with another woman, both of them gave birth to a girl. Now I don't know which girl is to which mother. And then the two brothers that this guy had from his father that was not from his mother went ahead and married these two girls from the Taravis. And now they die without any children. They're falling in front of this guy to do Yibum. Now one of them is Achaisai Me'imot, is his maternal sister. And would he recognize it, she would not require chalitza. But now that he doesn't recognize which one she is, so both of them need chalitza. That's one version of the Rashi. Another version, which is the girsa we have in our Gemara, is uvo achehen, that their brothers, shaloi moiseim, came along, that was not from the same mother, came along and married them. What that means is, the way Rashi describes, is that there is a brother of Reuben married one of them, a brother of Chetzron married one of them. Reuben's going to do chalitza to his brother's wife, and maybe it's his sister, and so to Chetzron, which Rashi says Zu Shamati, and this is the girsa we have in our Gemara. It says Libi Megam Gemba, because maybe it's not his sister, because it should have said Zechelis L'Safik Achaisai, not Achaisim Esafik, L'Safik Achaisai, and this one's doing chalitza to Safik Achaisai. But Achaisim Esafik sounds like that he's doing chalitza for sure to his sister because of a suffix that he has. But the case that we have being described is not saying to achaisim a suffix, it's to suffix achaisim. So the Rashi says that he prefers the other girsa, which is a different case. Shnei achem min ha'av, not this girsa that we have, acheihen shalim ma'osei ha'aim, which would be each one of them having one of them. And then you're going to be doing that one, which is achais. It's not going to be achais misafik, it's going to be safik achais. That's the case of the sister. Then we have labita misafik. So what's the case that you can be doing chalitza to your daughter out of doubt? Is ishtai v'isha acheres. Again, here we have a woman and another woman. So Rashi describes it. You have the wife of Reuben and you have the wife of Kaleb. This is Reuben and this is Kaleb over here. Again, these two women gave birth to these two girls in the cave. We don't know who's the mother of who. Comes out that one of them is obviously his daughter. One of them. We don't know which one. Now came along their brothers, I mean the two brothers, let's say of Reuven, came along and Benasim, and they married these two girls. And now they died without any children. So what we say, Zechelis Labita Mesafik, comes out that Reuven has to do chalitza to his daughter out of doubt, because both of them need chalitza. Now, if you would recognize which one is daughter, she would be potter. Now, again, this is all going again with this, depending on the size. Now, if the two brothers of color married them, so then the zechel is a bit misafik. He's going to have to do chalitza to his daughter out of safik, because Kala is going to be doing chalitza to his daughter out of safik is the same way, not sure who is his daughter and who is not. But according to the other girsa, it's that the brother of Reuben married one of them, the brother of Kaleb married one of them. Reuben's doing chalitza to his brother's wife, even though it might be his daughter, and so do Kaleb. But again, says Rashi, that's not really chalitza bita misafik, that's chalitza safik bita. So that would really be a different girsa. That again, depending on if we're saying that the two, who is the two? Is the two of one of them, or is the two meaning of one and one? And then, because there's only two girls here, so you're either saying that two brothers of one, or you're saying that one of them had one and the other one had married one, and you don't know which one it is. So it's either safik bita or bita mesafik. But the point is, all these cases share a similar pattern, the sense of that where they were born in a machave, which is the concept of our previous mission. We don't know who's who, and you might be doing chalitza to your mother, you might be doing chalitza to your sister, you might be doing chalitza to your daughter. Related discussion, also a very interesting idea. Hanya in the Brisa, Meir said, Ishvi Isha, you could have a couple, a man and a woman. Sometimes they can give birth to 5 nationalities. What does that mean? Kesa. So Yisrael shalokach eved v'shivcha min hashuk. Let's say you have a Jew that purchased a maidservant and a slave from the marketplace. And they had 2 sons. And one of the sons converted. Nimtza comes out. Echad ger, ve'echad eibekachavim. Meaning, as Rashi explains, that the sons that were born to them when they were not Jewish, meaning when they were owned by the non-Jewish slave owner, they're not considered as avodim. Why not? Because the Gemara said in Chalas Daf and Vav and Aleph, the pasuk says, "Mehem tiknu," you should buy from the Canaanim as slaves, which means atam kain mehem, you could purchase them, but they cannot purchase from you, and beloyhim kain mezeh, they cannot purchase from each other. So it comes out that here in the beginning, this non-Jewish slave couple, their children were considered as akum, not as avodim, as akum, because a non-Jewish slave owner can't really in halacha own another non-Jew as a slave. So therefore, you have one as a ger. Okay, obviously that's a different nationality, but you have the first child is an akum, is considered as a non-Jew. That's one nationality. Hitfil l'shem abdus. Now, let's say the Jewish slave owner went and immersed his couple for the purposes of slavery. And then they get married. And they have a child. So you have a ger, which is one type of person. You have the Eved, like we said before, because you had from those 2 sons, one of them converted. And now you have an Eved, because only halachically now is it considered an Eved because you have the Jewish slave owner. Now, shifra as a shifra, let's say the Jewish slave owner goes and frees his maidservant, so she's like a regular Jewish woman. Ubola Eved, now her husband is still a slave, and he's born her. So Harekan Ger, V'Eved the Eved, and now you have a 4th one, Umamzer, because she's a regular Jewish woman. She's a Jewish woman with a Eved, making the child into a Mamzer. Now, Shichur Shneim, let's say he frees both of them. V'Sin Zelzeh, now they get married, Harekan Ger, V'Eved Ve'eved, Mamzer, V'Yisrael. And therefore you have 5 different types of peoples. Akum, Ger, Eved, Mamzer, and Yisrael. It says Gemara, Michael Shalom, what are you teaching us? Ve'eved, Haba, Bas Yisrael. It's regarding case number 4. That when you have a non-Jew and a slave, that's Ba Bas Yisrael, which in this case it's Eved, and this Shifch is a Bas Yisrael. Haba Mamzer, the child's going to be Mamzer, which again is contested. That's what we're teaching you here in this Brisa, that the child's going to be a Mamzer. Talking about in the Brisa, related idea, interesting wording, is Yesh Meiches Avi. You could have a situation where a father will be selling his father Lahagvis Imek Subasa to have his mother collect her ksuba. Ketzer, how so? So the Brisa illustrates Yisrael lokach eved v'shivcha min hashuk. Let's say a Jew purchased a slave and a maid servant min hashuk from the marketplace. B'lehem ben, and they had a son. He didn't buy the son, but they had a son. V'shirchas hashivcha, and now the slave, the Jewish slave owner freed the maid servant, the nas, and he married her. And then he went and he wrote all his assets to the son of this woman that he married, this shivcha, and then he died. Now the mother is claiming her ksuba from the estate. And who owns the estate? Is her son. Nimzer comes out, the son is selling his father, the slave, to collect for the mother her ksuba. Says what's that coming to teach us? So it says the Gemara, either Kuler Meiri, meaning this second brisa of Yesh Meicher, that you could have a situation where someone will be selling his father to collect his mother ksuba. Meir said that too, where it's the end of the previous brisa, and the Avda Metaltali, and the reason why, that's why we're saying that the Eved is Meshubit to the ksuba, which is essentially the idea that the son is selling his father because the father is an Eved, and he's Meshubit, he's collateral for the ksuba, because the Meir holds that Metal Mishtabit the ksuba, that Metal, movable items like a slave, is considered collateral for the ksuba, which the Gemara Ksubas, the Pema Beis, teaches that if someone leaves over payers that are already detached from the ground, regarding Metatli, Remeir holds that's Meshubah for the Ksuba. And that's the Chiddush that we're teaching. That's all Remeir this, that even this halacha is a continuation of his opinion, that, like we said, that's previous brisa that said the interesting case of the 5 types. This is a continuation of that, and it's still Remeir, and that's what it's coming to tell us, that since it's Remeir who holds that Avodim is Metaltli, and therefore we're teaching you that Metaltim are Meshubah for the Ksuba. Or if you want, you could say, how come Hashman actually know what the Bryce is teaching is the Abdikim Mekarka dummy, that a slave is considered like Karka, although obviously he moves around, but he's considered well known and well identified like a piece of land, and therefore according to everyone he's going to be Meshubah, and that's the Chiddush that we're teaching you, that Abdikim Mekarka dummy. So that's the two different shots and what is it coming to teach us regarding this case of the son selling his father to collect the ksuba for the mother. We now love the next Mishnah, continue on the same theme of the previous Mishnah regarding when we have this tarayvus, when you have the children getting mixed up, and the ramifications of that. It says the Mishnah, Isha shenizar v'lada b'vad kalasa. If you have a woman, this Rachel married to Yaakov, and she has these children, and she has a daughter-in-law, Shnia, Chana, who's married to Reuven, and she also has children, this Chana and this Chetzron. So now, gives birth to Laban Yehuda. One gives birth to Laban, one gives birth to Yehuda. And they get mixed up. They don't know who gave birth to who. So, Higdila Tarevis, Benasu Nashim and Mesa. Okay, so they go to Chayda, they're regular kindlech, they don't know who's who. They're both living in the same house anyway. So, anyways, the Baba is taking care of both of them. And then they get older, they marry women, and they die without any children. What do you do? We don't know who are the brothers. So says the Mishnah, B'nei HaKalam, the sons of the daughter-in-law, the Schanech and the Chetzron, what they do to these 2 boys who died without any children, are Choltzim L'miyam. They do Chalitza, and they don't do Yid. Why? Because there's a suffix. What's the suffix? Shu suffix Eishes Ach. It might be that it's married to it's his brother's wife. Maybe. Again, one of them is, and one of them is not. But Safik Eishes Achi of it. It might be his father's brother's wife. It might be from the Shviger. Eishes Achi of it is a erva. Can't do Yibum. So you do Chalitza. On the other hand, B'nei HaZikena, the sons of the Baba, of the Eltera, of the Shviger, they could do either Chalitza or Yibum. Why? Because what's the suffix over here? Shesafik Eishes Achiv, it's either the brother's wife, which obviously has the head of Yibum, or the Eishes Ben Achiv. It might be the wife of his brother's son, the nephew, which is permitted. There's no Issa Erva for Ben Achiv. So Maman of Shach, these brothers of Reuven, the sons of Rachel, they could do Bia, they can marry Maman of Shach, because either it's their brother's wife, because we're not sure Levi Yehuda is that their brothers, or is it the brothers of their nephew? So we're not sure. So either one is going to be okay. Now that's if, let's say, the Sveikim die. What happens if Mesu HaKsherim? What happens if, as the Gemara will explain, the Ksherim just means the definite sons. We know Yosef and Binyamin were all three brothers from Rachel and Yaakov. We're just not sure Levi Yehuda was Levi or Yehuda, the son of Chana, the son of Rachel. So let's say the Kshem die. So what's with Hataregas? What do they do now? What does Levi and Yehuda do now? Meaning, what's with their wives? So depends. Lebnei hazikena, to the sons of the elderly woman, meaning to the depending who dies is going to be differently. This is the first case. Let's say Yosef and Binyamin die. So then chaltzim v'lo Binyamin. They can do chalitza, not going to do yibum. Why? Shusafik eshes achiv, because it might be his brother's wife. We don't know. Meaning, this Levi Yehuda, one of them might be. We know. Well, one of them is. One of them is the brother. One of them is the nephew. Right? We don't know who they're born to. So each one of them is a Safik Eshes Achav, or the Eshes Achiv might be his father's brother's wife. Let's say Sarah. No mitzvah ibn, so you have to chalitza. Now, what's with if, let's say, lebnei hakala, let's say the definite sons of the daughter-in-law, Chanach and Chetzra. These two sons of Chana, we know that they were sons of Chana and Reuven. They died without any children. What will Levi Yehuda do to them? Oh, so here, Echad, one of the mixture, again we call them Levi Yehuda the mixture, they chalitz, one guy does chalitza first, and then the second one left could do even Maman. If it's his Yevamot, very good. If not, if it's his brother's sons, right? Let's say he's from the elder generation, the Friedigedor, right? The brothers of Reuben. So fine, it's his brother's son's wife who already got chalitza from the other one, and therefore he's permitted. So, Maman Shach, he could do Yibum the second one. Now, Mishnah moves on with another case of a mixture, but just different type of a discussion. Kahanis, Shenisar Vlad Vlad Shevchasa. Let's say you have a Kahanis. What? Yeah, Pia. Yibum, yeah. Kahanis Shenisar Vlad Vlad Shevchasa. Let's say you have a Kahanis, a wealthy woman, a Kahanis, and she has many slave women, and then childbirth is happening at the same time with her maidservant, and then the children get mixed up. We don't know who is the son of the Kahanis and who's the son of the Shevcha. So you have the following halacha. So both of them could eat truma. A kohen is allowed to eat truma, and the Eved kohen, who's kinyan kaspite, could also eat truma. So they can both eat truma. The Gemara is going to explain exactly what does this mean. They get one portion by the granary, which is where they give out the truma. Both of them cannot make themselves tamei to dead people, although Eved doesn't have that problem, but he might be the Ben Kain. Now, they can't get married. Why can't they get married? Because Ben Kasheris, you can't marry a kosher woman because you might be the Eved. And maybe you can't marry a pasla woman, let's say a maidservant, because you might be the Kain. Now, Higdila Terevis, when this mixture gets older, the shiur zeh, and then they free each other, because if I'm the kohen, you're the Eved, I'll free you. If you're the kohen, I'm the Eved, you'll free me. Then then they have to marry women that are fit for kahuna, not a grusha chlutza, because each one might be the kohen. And the immatam the mason, they can have themselves to the mason because you might be the kohen, not the Eved. Now let's say they do become tamei. So then they don't get 40 lashes. Because each one can say, I'm not a kohen, prove it, and then give me lashes. Now, they can't eat truma anymore. Because what happens is, the Eved that was freed, is not an Ebed Kain anymore. It's not Kinei Kaspa, it's a regular Yisrael. So each one might be the freed slave, and you can't eat Truma. Let's say did eat. They don't have to pay the principal and an additional fifth, because each one could say, I'm the Kain. Prove that I'm not the Kain, that I should have to pay. Now, we don't give them Truma by the granary, because again, the freed one is Yisrael, he's not a Kain anymore. Now, the Truma of their own crop, when they separate it, they don't have to give it to a Kain, because each one could say to the Kain, bring proof that I'm not a Kain, and then take it. But Lamaisa, he can't eat it, because he might be a Yisrael. So what they do is they sell it to the Kahanim, and Vadam Shalahem, and they get to keep the money, because that's the Din Imamanis. There's two halachas in Truma. There's the monetary law, and then there's the prohibitory law. Prohibitory law, he can't eat it, because he might be eating it, he might be Yisrael. But regarding monetary law, come prove to me that it's not my money, so I'll sell it to you, but you have to pay me. And they don't get to divide the kachim from the Beis Hamikdash. For example, let's say the skins of the kachim, meaning obviously they're not eating kachim, but they don't even get the skins of the animal, the karbanas. And we don't give them kachim to sacrifice, because he might not be a kohen. Now we don't take away theirs from their own hands. What does that mean to say? So Rashi explains, if let's say this individual, who we're not sure who he is, was he a freed slave or is he a kohen? If let's say they're chayv chatas or an ashram or an oilam, we don't force them to give it to the kahanim of that mishmar, so that the avodah and the skin should be for the people of the mishmar, because each one of these two people could say, I'm a kohen. Now, so therefore, what about that you're a kohen? So Brisa teaches Baba Kamdav Kuftes Mabeis. Where do we know a kohen that comes and he wants to mark up his carbon anytime he wants to, even in his own mission, when it's not his own mission that he could do that? It says, whatever his heart's desire, he can do that. How do we know that the avodah and the skins are his? Because it says, that we have the man for his kachim is his. Now, this mixture of these two people, since one of them is a kohen, the bezin cannot forcibly take it away from him and to give it to the kahanim of that mishmar. Rather, they could bring their own karbanas, and then they could go ahead and take the skin and the meat and give it to whoever they want to. Or, from this mixture of these two people, they can make a shlich any kind that he wants to sacrifice their carbon, or hold on to their carbon until whenever they want to give it to the Anshe Mishmar that they want to. That's one interpretation of Rashi. But another one, which he says is really the primary interpretation, is that when we said Ve'ein Noislim Kadashim, what does that mean from the previous words in the Mishnah, that we don't give them, maybe from these words of from the previous words that don't give them the kachim, means by a firstborn animal or a chayrim, which those are kind of gifts. You don't give that to any one of these two men. And when we say ve'imitzin eshalem meyadim, we don't take away theirs from their hands, is where, let's say he says, I'm a kohen. And by Charam, the Mishnah teaches in Erchin of Chav Chesem and Aleph, that kahanim, they cannot be machrim, because Charam are theirs. So he's saying if he made a chayim, we don't take it away from him because it's ich ben kohen. And then the Mishnah says, what do you do with his own firstborn animal? That's what the next words in the Mishnah is going to say shortly, that yirat sheyistav. You let a great fellow rubs a blemish and you don't sacrifice the unblemished, because if that would be the case, he wouldn't be able to eat the meat, because the one who sacrificed would hold on to it because it's forbidden for zar. Rashi says the first interpretation is difficult to him because the Gemara says in Mavakam Daf Kof Yud that where a person cannot do that avodah, he cannot make a shliach either. So how can you say that what it means to say is imitzin shalom miyadam is let's say his own chatas, you don't take it away from him because he can appoint someone else. He can't do it himself because he obviously he might not be a kohen. How can you appoint someone else? If you can't do that avodah, you can't appoint someone else. So Rashi finds it difficult if he wants to say that this that we say that imitzin shalom miyadam is not referring to that of, let's say, chatas or asham. It's referring to when he makes a chayr. Chayr means like a certain type of hekdesh you make for Hashem, which we said ein nois lehem. When we say ein nois lehem kachim, we mean we don't give them the chayrim, and also ein mitzin lehem shalem miyadam is their own chayrim, where it's been a kohen. You don't chayrim of a kohen is nothing. You can't take away from me. Don't try to give it to hekdesh because I might be a kohen. Either way, continues the Mishnah. These two people, when they slaughter an animal, which generally you have to give 3 parts of every animal that's slaughtered to the kohen, the foreleg, the jaws, and the one of the types of stomachs of the animal, that These three he doesn't have to give to the kohen because I can be a kohen. And the b'chayrai, his firstborn animal, yehirayat sheistar, that should graze until it develops a blemish, even at the time when the Beis Hamikdash was around. Because again, you cannot force him to give it to the kohanim to sacrifice and to eat the meat, and they don't want to give it to the kohen, and he's and to give them he can't force them to give the kohen to give him back the meat, and unblemished b'chayr can only be eaten by kohanim, where it says b'sar milucha k'chazayat snufa, and the Gemara says and b'chayr is not chav chazal. So, but he's not going to eat it, and he doesn't want to give it to them. So therefore, you let it graze, develops a blemish, and then you could slaughter whatever you want to, and you could and they could eat it because a b'chayr ba'mum has no problem about a zar eating it. The only problem would be generally is about stealing matnas kuna. Here there's no gezel because it's a mitzvah v'lebraya. So that's what you do. You let the first one animal graze till it develops a blemish, and concludes the Mishnah the law of chumir kahan v'chumir Yisrael. We put on these two individuals the stringencies of Yisrael and the stringencies of a kohen, which the Gemara is going to explain exactly what does that mean. Now, if you recall back to the beginning of the Mishnah, we had a case that we spoke about when we had these Shviga and her daughter-in-law, that they had children and got mixed up. And we had two types of cases. We had, if let's say the Taroivas die, what do the sons of the Zikanim and the son of the Shneya do? And then we had the other way around. What happens if, let's say, Meisrak Sheir and B'chulu? Those are the words of the Mishnah. If Sheir die, what do the Bnei Taroivas do? The Gemara says, what, Sheir? But the other two men, of course, they were mixed up at birth. They're the invalid ones. So the Gemara says, the Gemara is just clarifying. When we say Meisrak Sheir, it's not like they're kosher and they're puzzle. We just meant in a kosher way that we know definitively who they are, but you're right, that doesn't make the other ones puzzle, it really just means the definite ones. Okay. Then, we said in the Mishnah that, so what do if let's say the Vadoim die, what do the Taroivas do? So we said depends. We said, L'bnei HaZikenim, they're always going to have to do Chalitza, because it might be Eishes Achi Aviv, because they might be from the next door. And the Bnei HaZikenim from the Shviga might be a generation high, which no Yibum, and then you might be having an erva of Eishach Yav. But the Bnei HaKala, we said, let's say, however, the two sons of the daughter-in-law died, then we said, then we said, okay, from this mixture, we're going to have one do Chalitza and one do Yibum. And we said, Manav Shach, you could do Yibum because if it's Eishach Achav, fine. If not, Eishach Ben Achav, which there's no erva on, if they're from the Friede Gedor, the nephew, the Plumenic, there's no problem about what? Right, there's no problem about a generation down, but even a niece. I mean, a nephew's wife, Eish's Ben Achav, there's no problem. But the Gemara does point out, and it does this on many of the next Mishnayos, that the order is specific. But specifically, we said but it has to be one does chalitza, one does yibum. Why? You can't have the first guy do yibum because the kapaga be Yevamos Daf, because maybe he is the son of the zikena, of the shviga, and the other brother, the other man there is the son of the shnia, of this daughter-in-law, and if he's doing the yibum first, you're right, it's no erva. But the problem is that she might be Yevama Lashuk. She might be waiting. Her Yavam didn't do Chalitza yet. So although it's her erva, and no one's allowed to marry her because she's Yevama, waiting to marry her Yavam. And if you didn't do Chalitza first, I mean, if the first one does Chalitza Manavshach, you're in good place.
Chalitza can be done by not a brother?
Yeah, because it's nothing. Meaning whatever it is.
That's still Yevama Lashuk.
No, Manavshach. These two boys, one of them was a daughter of the Shviga, one of them was a daughter of the Shneya.
But it could be it's not.
So these two boys are one.
It could be another brother.
Right. If the first one does Chalitza, if he is the brother, then he did Chalitza, now she can marry whoever she wants to. If he's not the brother, then the other one is the brother. Chalitza is nothing. Chalitza just take off your shoe. Yeah. Some woman could come and take off your shoe and spit at you too.
It's good.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's not doing anything.
In order for the second person to do Yevama,
No, we're only saying do Chalitza just in case. What happens is that one is the brother and one is the uncle. and we don't know who's who. We don't know who's these two boys.
It could be both and our brothers.
This Levi and Yehuda, this Chanach and Chetron died. Rachel and Chana, this is the Shviga and the Shnia, had sons. Rachel had these three boys, Chana had these two boys, and if let's say Chana's two boys died, when Rachel and Chana gave birth once, they gave birth to Levi and Yehuda. We don't know who gave birth to Levi, who gave birth to Yehuda. Now, when Chanach and Chetron died, and you have this Levi and Yehuda, one of them is the brother, one of them is the uncle. Right? We don't know who gave birth to who. So now, when Chanach and Chetron die and the son Rivka, one of them will do Chalitza first, and the other will do Yibam second. If Levi is the brother, great. Meaning the brother of Chanach and Chetron, great, he's doing Yibam. And then Yehuda is, meaning if Levi doing Chalitza, if he did Chalitza, fine. Now Yehuda, who's the uncle, is allowed to marry the nephew's wife. No, it's ever. If Levi is really the uncle, so he's doing Chalitza, which is nothing, and Yehuda is doing the Yibam. So either way, you're in a good place. But again, it has to be that Levi does Chalitza, or whoever it is, whoever's going first has to do Chalitza first. Just in case, if let's say the second one, even if he's the uncle, or whatever it is, you can't have the first one do the Yibam, because even though there's no erva, it's going to be a problem like Yevamos. That's why you have to do the Chalitza first. Now, the Mishnah had said, the next case, a very different case, but again, the same idea of Tadayv is Kahenesh and Isar B'chulu. Regarding a Kahenesh that she gave birth at the same time as her maidservant, and the children got mixed up. So one of the halachas we said was that B'cholken Chelik Echad B'Gayr. We said that this Tadayv is that they receive one portion by the granary. So he must say Chelik Echad Pshita. It's obvious that they only receive one portion of Truma because one of them is the Echte Kayin, is the real Kayin, which he's allowed to get. Oh, it's an Eved, he's allowed to eat, but he doesn't get a portion by the granary. So what are you saying that they get one portion? Same as says the Gemara, no, what we mean to say is Chelik Echad. What does that mean? They get a portion as one. Meaning if both of them come to the granary, we're going to give them together. But one without the other, you're not going to give it to them. Why? Because the Tana holds that you don't give out Truma to an Eved unless his master is with him. Why? Because maybe if you're going to give it to him by himself, you might come and say, oh, there's a Chabagezain, Aruski telt Trimme, and I'm a Yichus, and they're going to think he's a Kain. Really, he's an Eved Kain. So we don't give out to an Eved Kain comes, collecting for his master. No, only if the master Kain is there. So if the other one is there, one of them is the master and one of them is the slave, then we're going to give it. That's what it means. It doesn't mean Chelik Echad, it means Chelik Echad. So the Gemara, it's not Command Damas. Our Mishnah is teaching us like the one who says, Ein Chalkin Truma LeEved, you don't give out to the slave unless his master is with him. The time I learned the Brisa. Ein Chalkin Truma LeEved, Yehuda says you don't give out Truma to the slave unless the master is with him. V'yisim, he disagrees, and our Mishnah is not like him. He says, Yachol, you could. Why? Because Sheyomer, and this is going in the case of someone who's a Suffolk Kain or Suffolk Eved, like the case of our Mishnah, he could say, look, him Kain and the I'm the Kain to Nuli B'Shvasmi, give it to me because of myself. If I'm the slave of a Kain, Nuli B'Shvasmi, give it to me because my master is a Kain, and I could go and collect his Truma. So, therefore, that's the Machlekes, our Mishnah is like a Yehuda. Now, the Brisa points out, the B'Kaimish of Yehuda, how do you explain the Machlekes here in the Brisa? That in the place of Rabbi Yehuda, what they used to do is they would elevate a person, not from the eating of Truma, but from if a person got chalukah, if he got the apportioning of the Truma, then they would elevate him to a lineage of saying, as a meyiches, he's someone that is an esteemed kain. So therefore, you don't give him a portion so that they don't come to elevate him to yichus because he's really an eved. And conscience, because they wouldn't elevate, so therefore he said, of course, give it to him. What's the problem about giving him truma for his master? He's allowed to eat. And they didn't elevate from truma to yichus. A related discussion, Tanya learned in a brisa that Amar Rabbi Elazar Bar Tzadik, he says, he says, in my days I never testified regarding yichus, regarding to say the lineage of an individual, to say that he's a kosher person. One time, regarding that they had apportioned someone truma by the Gorin, so he testified, says, yeah, I know he's a meyuchas, I saw they gave out truma by the Gorin, and he says, the one time I said They made an Eved elevated to Kahuna because of what I said. That I said, yeah, I saw him there bringing out the Truma, a whole line of Kahanim, and he was there in the line. As the Gemara explains what happened, first of all, the Gemara asks, first of all, hell of do you really think to say that they had elevated the slave to Kahuna based on what he said? How can you say this? If we find by the animals of the righteous, and the Kaddish Baruch Hu, maybe we find that Kaddish Baruch Hu does not bring a stumbling block through them, which is the classic story of the donkey of Pinchas ben Yair, as the Gemara says, regarding that he didn't want to eat something that was untight. He was just the animal of a righteous person. Tzaddikim asma l'koshkin, isn't it for sure all the more so that a tzaddik himself, that a takal is not going to come through him? Which Taisa says not to have this girsa, because these questions in Shas are only where the Chacham himself stumbled in eating something forbidden. Of course, a tzaddik could have a takala. But Taisa says it's only by machalas asuras. That's where you say that, just like the case of the donkey, that he didn't want to eat something forbidden, a tzaddik doesn't end up eating something forbidden. But in general, different Taisa says not to have the girsa, because it definitely could have been. But the Gemara says, Eila Emer rather say, Bikshu lahalas ever l'kun alpi. That, no, they wanted to elevate this Evan. He heard about it and never happened, but that's what they want to. And the Gemara explains what happened is because Chaza, this Rabbi Elazar ben Tzaddik, he saw Ba'asr Rabbi Yosi. Problem was, this Chalukah was happening to this Evan where Rabbi Yosi lived. Where Rabbi Yosi, they would give Chalukah to the Evan because by his place, they weren't Mala from Chalukah Liyuchsa. Problem is, Ba'asr Rabbi Yehuda. He testified in the place where Rabbi Yehuda was. Where in Rabbi Yehuda's place, they didn't give Chalukah to Abban because there they were Mala Yuchasim. So he mixed up the place. He saw one place, but he testified somewhere else. So here they did it because they weren't Mala, so they allowed Abban. The place where he ended the testimony was they don't allow, and then they are Mala. But therefore, that's why the problem happened by where he testified that they wanted to be Mala for Liyus. Again, related regarding about who do they give out by the granary, the Truma in the Brisa. Asara in Chalkim of Truma basic runs. There's 10 individuals that we don't give them a portion of Truma by the granary, and all of them, the reasonings are explained. What are these 10 individuals? You have a Cheresh, a deaf mute, a Shaita, mentally deranged, a cotton, and a minor. Tuntum, someone that we don't know clearly the gender. By Dragoness has both sides of gender. Va'eved, and a slave. Va'isha, and a woman, meaning the wife of a Kohen. Va'arel, and someone who's uncircumcised, meaning even if his brothers died because of circumcision and he can't have a bris milah because it would be too dangerous, that type of arel. Va'tameh, and someone who is richly impure. V'naisi isha shein against, and if he marries a woman that's not appropriate for him, meaning that's possible for kahuna. These are the 10 individuals that we don't give them a portion by the basic grounds. Now, however, but all of them, we will send the truma to their homes, and they'll eat it over there. This was before Uber Eats, that they'll send it to their homes. And obviously, Rashi points out an oral is obviously not allowed to eat it. But when we say they're going to eat it, meaning he'll give it to his wives, and his slaves. Chutz mitame, except we won't send it to their homes by a tummy person. And if he marries a woman that's not appropriate for him, which it wasn't explaining exactly why those two are an exception. So the Gemara goes through to explain all the different halachas over here, meaning these 10 cases. Because we understand the first 3, the mentally deranged, the deaf mute, and the minor, why we don't give them a chalukah, a portion, is because they don't have intelligence, and it would be a disgrace to Truma, Rashi explains, to portion greenery in front of everyone. It's we'll come with the gazach. Get a chalukah, it's not appropriate to give it the chesed because. Of course, they can eat Truma, we'll send it to their house, but they don't get a portion there by the grain. Regarding those 2 cases, they're their own creations, they're very unique, abnormal in their birth, and therefore it's like a disgrace to kachmi. Again, we'll give them, but it's not appropriate to be giving it for them. Even Nami, a slave also, as we had mentioned in the previous sugya, why don't give it to them by the grain? Because they might come to elevate him. Everyone sees he's getting a portion of truma. They might come to say he's a meyuchas and then marry him to the chashem mishpachas when he really is an eved. Arul tameh, regarding someone that's arul and he's tameh, the reason why we don't give him is mishum meisi. In halacha, arul is considered disgusting, where he's not circumcised, and someone who's tameh is also repulsed. And no Isha Shem Negedas, if he marries a woman that's not appropriate for him, that's possible goodness, Misham Knas is because of penalty. Because what are you doing marrying this woman? So we're not going to give you truma as a chalukah. What's the reason why the wife of a kohen? Why don't we give her a portion? So think about a papa for hundred shiur. Chanama one says mishum grusha, meaning maybe her husband's going to divorce her, and really she's a non-kohenes, and people are not going to know, and they're going to keep on giving her because they always gave her. She always stood in line. My Zayda said, everyone just stood in lines. You didn't know what you're going to get. He ended up in America because he was happy to be on a line. You're waiting for bread, waiting for something. You wait on line. So she always waits on line, and then you're going to continue giving her. But really, she's already divorced. And again, you can't give her truma. Chanam says, no, the reason why you don't give a woman is Rishum Yichud. Because what happens is, because it might not be anyone on line today. It might just be this woman and this man here that's running the granary. And they're going to be secluded. Because of that, we're getting shafron, we don't give for women. That's the two pshatim. Says what's the difference between these two different pshatim? Seik benayu is either beidari de mekarav l'masa. If you have a granary that's close to town, so as Rashi explains, there's no concern for giving the woman now that she's divorced because it's close to town, and everybody knows. We all know that she got divorced, and therefore. There's no concern for that. At the same time, but it's still a secluded area, and people are not frequently there, and you could have a problem. But yichud. So according to the one of yichud, you still wouldn't give to the women of that town. But according to the one that holds the promise about grusha, since it's close by to the town, we would give. Or another approach is the other way around. Menachik. It's actually far away from town, so therefore there is the concern about the grusha that you're not going to know that she's divorced. Whereas but it's a very popular area where there's people always there, and therefore there's no problem about yichud, and that would be the nafkamina between these two pshatim. If it's mekadav and the menachik, and lo shchicha or shchicha beinchi, that would be the difference between these two different pshatim. Thank you for any time.